In the stillness of a South London night, an elderly woman slept alone in her home, quiet, familiar and safe. But inside, something had already changed. The lights wouldn't work, the phone line was dead, and then he appeared, a masked figure, silent, watching. For 17 years this man moved through the shadows of South London, committing some of the most disturbing crimes in modern British history, evading capture, not because he was invisible, but because he was missed. This is the true story of the Night Stalker. The first confirmed attack took place in October 1992 in Shirley, Croydon. Then nothing. For years, silence. When the attacks resumed in the late 1990s, a chilling pattern began to emerge, one that investigators would struggle to fully understand for years. The offender targeted elderly victims, most often women aged between their late 60s and early 90s. Many lived alone. Some suffered from serious medical conditions, including Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. They were chosen because they were vulnerable. This wasn't random violence, it was methodical. The attacker entered homes from the side or rear, through unlocked windows or by removing glass entirely. Sometimes he used tools taken from the victim's own property. Once inside, he isolated the environment. Telephone wires were cut, lights disabled or bulbs removed, rooms left in total darkness, and then he waited, sometimes for hours. When he approached, he used a torch to confuse his victims, often waking them with demands for control. In some cases, he assaulted or raped them. In others, he lingered, spoke calmly, or even left without escalating the attack. That unpredictability made him even more terrifying. One victim later recalled challenging him, asking him what his mother would think. He apologised and left. But the restraint never lasted. At his most violent, he left victims with life-threatening injuries. By the time of his arrest, Delroy Grant had been convicted of 29 offences, including rape, burglary and sexual assault. But those numbers only tell part of the story. Investigators linked him to over 100 incidents, some with estimates suggesting the true number could be as high as 600. Many victims never came forward. Some were too traumatised. Others believed the authorities were already overwhelmed. One victim even expressed gratitude that he had been gentle, a detail that reveals the deep psychological impact of these crimes. In 1998, the Metropolitan Police launched Operation Minstead, a dedicated task force that would become one of the largest and most complex rape investigations in history. Over time, more than 2,000 DNA samples were collected. A suspect pool of 21,000 was reduced to around 1,000. Behavioural experts, profilers and psychologists were deployed. The offender left DNA but didn't match anyone on the database. He wore gloves, leaving no fingerprints. He concealed his face, rendering CCTV useless. And crucially, he had already slipped through the system. In May 1999, a member of the public reported a suspicious car near a burglary in Bromley. They noted the number plate and police traced it to a man, Delroy Grant. This should have been the moment the investigation ended. Instead, it became one of its greatest failures. A database mix-up led investigators to compare crime scene DNA with the wrong individual, someone with a similar name. When it didn't match, Grant was effectively ruled out. Officers visited his home. They confirmed the car with his wife, but they never returned to speak to him. He was eliminated from the investigation. Over the next 10 years, he continued offending, committing at least 146 additional crimes, including further rapes and sexual assaults. Later reviews would describe this as a critical failure in basic policing. As Operation Minstead expanded, several lines of inquiry slowed progress. Investigators pursued the theory that the offender used a motorbike based on a witness hearing a loud engine. In reality, the sound likely came from a car. DNA analysis suggested Caribbean ancestry, narrowing the suspect pool, but not enough to identify him. At one stage, police requested voluntary DNA samples from hundreds of men in South London, sparking controversy and damaging community trust. Even CCTV footage showing the suspect using stolen bank cards failed to identify him due to his consistent use of disguises. In 2009, the approach changed. Officers focused on geographic patterns, returning to the areas where the earliest offences had occurred. Around 70 officers were deployed in a targeted surveillance operation. Then came the moment that it ended. A suspicious man was seen running towards a parked vehicle in Shirley. Police intervened. Inside the car, they found tools, gloves, and spare clothing, consistent with the offender's method. Nearby, a police dog tracked the scent directly to a recently burgled home. After 17 years, the Night Stalker had finally been identified. Delroy Grant was not hiding in isolation. He was a father of 10, a full-time carer, a man living an ordinary life in South London. By day, invisible. By night, something else entirely. In 2011, Grant was brought to trial at Woolwich Crown Court. He faced charges spanning nearly 2 decades, covering rapes, sexual assaults, burglaries, all against elderly victims. He denied all charges and showed no remorse. At one stage, he claimed evidence had been planted to frame him, a claim dismissed as demonstrating complete indifference to right and wrong. He was found guilty. He was sentenced to 4 life sentences, a minimum term of 27 years, additional concurrent sentences for burglary and indecent assault. The judge described his actions as depraved beyond measure, highlighting the fear and suffering inflicted on victims who had believed their homes were safe. For survivors, the impact did not end with his conviction. Many lived with long-term trauma, locking doors repeatedly, sleeping in fear, and never regaining a sense of safety. Some victims died before justice was delivered. Families described the crimes as having destroyed the final years of their loved ones' lives. The police later issued formal apologies, acknowledging that earlier intervention could have prevented many of the offences. The story of the Night Stalker is not only about a serial offender, it is about missed chances, a number plate that led to a name, a visit that led to nothing, a decade where everything could have been different, because in this case the most disturbing truth isn't just what he did, it's how long he was allowed to continue.